Hi, my name is Jessica Smith. I'm the head of revenue for Angel City FC, the newest franchise in the NWSL, and welcome to ADC Partners Podcast.
Hi, I'm Dave Almy of ADC Partners. Here's the thing. One of my least favorite phrases that I hear in business is, but this is the way we've always done things. It's almost always a red flag, right? Which is why my conversation with Jessica Smith, the head of revenue for Angel City FC, was so enjoyable. Jess and the founders of the Startup National Women's Soccer League Club started out by saying, okay, that's how launching a sports franchise has always been done. So how should we do things differently? And without a single player on their roster, and the first game still about 8 months away, Angel City FC has created a lot of buzz in the second largest media market in the U.S. In our conversation, Jess talks about how the club's clear vision, sense of purpose, and a willingness to experiment have been instrumental to their initial success. Hope you enjoy listening in. Jessica Smith, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for spending time with us. And I think to get started, why don't we go through very quickly, for those who are unfamiliar with Angel City FC, can you give a little bit of insight into the club and what makes it different from what might be considered a typical sports team?
In short, we're the newest franchise in the National Women's Soccer League, but the piece that makes us different is we're actually a very unique mix of sport and pop culture and purpose. And the reason is really how we were derived, from Natalie Portman, who had done some work in getting to know some former U.S. women's national team players as well as some current ones, and understood more through Time's Up around the pay inequities at play. And in thinking through what she could do to make a difference, through many different conversations, was told, hey, make the most kick-ass team, really show how it's done and really continue to bring attention to what we're trying to do here and the incredible talent that is on the field.
So pretty specific marching orders there, right? Go create a kick-ass team.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was specifically said, I'll take credit for maybe making that specific lineup in myself and envisioning that it came from Abby Wambach and Julie Foudy. That did not happen, but it's how I envision it in my brain.
I like it.
But that's what we're doing, So right from the beginning, this was not, hey, let's build a sports team and make sure we're winning championships. Believe me, we're going to do that. We have 14 former U.S. women's national team members on our ownership group that are going to make sure that that's a goal of ours. But it really was, we're creating this team to create higher expectations on and off the field. And I don't know if you remember, many do when I point this out, there was a moment through Time's Up where Natalie and some of her friends, which are, I think, like a little bit cooler than I am, maybe not much, but Jen Garner and Uzo Adubo and Eva Longoria and more, they went to a women's national team game and they were in LA, and there's a photo of them on the field pointing to the jerseys of the players they're wearing. And that moment is one that the world paid attention to. And if you think about it, that influence from that group of incredible women continued the conversation, around the U.S. women's national team member. And in short, it was saying, hey, we've got your back, right? So the visibility that we're able to give to creating this team, and the purpose that we're looking to create through those higher expectations really puts us in a unique space in the marketplace. Again, really driving home that, yes, we're a sports team, but we are not just ticketed fans. Our platform is much bigger than that and spans much further given the folks that are involved in our project.
I mean, it's clear, like you said, the ownership group is comprised of what can only be called the A-list of pop culture, right? You've movies, you've got entertainment, you've got investment, all women who have really made a mark on the different industries with which they participate. But it seems like that also coincided with this moment for women's sports teams and leagues to succeed. I mean, we actually wrote a blog piece on it not too long ago about it. Is this finally the moment, right? You were just coming off the USA Hockey's team, just had this amazing Olympic win, and the U.S. women were dominating at World Cup. And while those were certainly catalysts, and it seems like also the ownership group coming along at that time for the launch of the club, I'm wondering if you feel like, are those all part of a larger thing that's just making this the moment for success for women's sports that are creating this moment? Or what are some of the other pieces that you think might be going into that right now?
Yeah, as somebody who's worked in the industry now close to 20 years, not to date myself, which I just did, I followed the women's game. As somebody who watched the NBA get derived when I was a young basketball player, in my high school, that was a historic moment where I was like, wow, I can play professional sports. And, it's still in its infancy, right? 25 years old and USL, 10 years old when you look at the other leagues. I think that's part of it. But I think more to what you're saying and more to what I believe in is we are at a point in time where consumers, and certainly this is generated in part by Gen Z, they will support brands that they believe in, and that's going to leak into sports teams and entertainment and pop culture too. It's no longer going to be, well, my dad was a Knicks fan, so I'm going to be a Knicks fan. It's going to be like, well, do I like the Knicks? Do I like the players on the Knicks? Do I like what the Knicks stand for? Do I want to wear that jersey? And that's already starting to be the consumer habit. You take that coupled with the now incredible platforms we have for athletes to use themselves, where they can tell their everyday stories and give people insight into what it's like, to be in their shoes, to play in this league, to want to have the success. And then you take that furthermore, look at the success that we have with entities like the U.S. Women's National Team and that platform that they have. And you marry those things together, and society is done with it. They don't want the inequities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating, right? Because you're talking about something you and I have touched on in the past, which is the idea of social impact, right? And for the vast majority of pro sports teams, they all have a foundation and it kind of does some stuff and it's kind of bolted on at the end and it's kind of used as like, and you can also do a donation to the foundation. For ACFC, that's really baked in to the DNA of the club, right? I mean, it's been popularly promoted in the press that 10% of all the sponsorship sales are directed towards local community programs. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and how that weaves into the partnerships you're creating and the partners' response to it, because you're right, like people want to care about the brands that they interact with. And so how has that and how have partners really leveraged that part of your story that you tell?
Yeah, and for those that are familiar with the sponsorship space, we can all agree that traditionally sponsorship is, look at my product, look how incredible it is. Here's the DNA of my fans, here's our reach, here's what we can do for you to make sure that we're driving the different goals that you have in front of us. And it's incredibly successful. There's a reason that the sponsorship budgets, both nationally and worldwide, continue to increase year over year, when you're able to actually make those connections. At Angel City, when we sat down and thought through sponsorship, we looked at what the club was, and our club is creating those higher expectations on off the field. And we have three pillars that we hold ourselves accountable to in equity, essentials, and education, and making sure that those are part of our everyday decisions. And instead of walking into a room and saying, here's what we're doing, we're trying to change the world, and here's the influence we have behind it, we really wanted to walk into the room and say, here's how we're going to change the world. We'd like you to do that with us. And what we've found is that brands are working to do the same thing. And when we came to them and shared who we are and what we want to try to accomplish, whether it is making sure, through our essentials pillar that we're feeding Los Angeles, which is incredibly important, especially now during COVID times. Unfortunately, the numbers are much higher than they've been in a very long time. Or we are building safe places to play through a healthcare partner, to make sure that diverse youth have places, safe places to play and grow. They want to be a part of that message. And for us, what we stand for is, fighting inequities. And so if we're going to say that that's what we want to do, this is a very tangible way to both hold ourselves and our partners, who are some of the most powerful brands, accountable to that. People, ask like, well, how do you really make sure, that gets done? Like, it's pretty simple. There's a line in the contract and there's specific dollars that have to go towards it. It's a legal binding document for us to activate against, so it's been tremendous to just, when people think about our partnerships, I'm sure knowing that you're passionate about the space, you think about them differently, right? People are going to know, hey, there's DoorDash in Angel City. They're providing over $1 million worth of meals over the course of their partnership. Oh, there's Birdies in Angel City. Did you know that they created an internship program, for high school students with diverse backgrounds to make sure that they have access to both sports and fashion industry even before college or secondary education. So it means something different. And then, of course, everything else that you can buy everywhere else, we're going to have and make sure that we're driving results for you too.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me too, from the standpoint of there's a couple things at play. One of which I just talked about earlier that we were discussing, which is the fact that in traditional sports teams, the community pieces were always that last bolt-on side, right? And you're really
totally
with ACFC really leading with them. This is how you are telling the story of what it is and providing some differentiation to what it is you're doing. The other thing that's fascinating to me, though, is that certain community initiatives, particularly those that may have been considered "quote unquote" controversial in the past, were the third rail for both athletes and sports teams. Right? It was like, "Don't touch it." It's the whole Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers things too. Right?
Yeah.
Now it feels like if you're not taking a stand on certain things that might have been considered controversial in the past, that's almost more of a showcase now. Like the fact that there's no overt statement of support about something going forward. And I feel like ACFC is also doing a good job. Has that ever been a source of contention inside the organization, or has it been pretty much straightforward from get-go?
It's been straightforward from the get-go. And I think for us, you can certainly be a team that's like, listen, we don't want to take any stance and we just want to just keep doing this and we hope we get your support and it's really fun to come out. And that's fine. But will you earn the trust and be worn by people that might not even follow your sport but want to represent what you stand for? No, absolutely not. And we are bullish on if you're not, then we're not the partner for you. Right? There are brands that take opposite stances for what we stand for. If you're not a supporter of the LGBTQ community, you are not a partner of our team. It's pretty simple, right? So we want to make sure that, we're having like-minded discussions and we're also attracting a powerful community that are all driven to accomplish the same things.
I mean, is that a key part of this too, right? You are basically the company you keep. It's great. You could certainly generate
Totally.
revenue from certain companies, but they just don't fit the story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we sponsorship and brands, and there's usually only so many that you're seeing that are, in different categories, right? Oh, you're going to have a QSR, which is a quick service restaurant, which I remember learning for the first time when I was in sponsorship. And Darren Gross, so I think we both know, said QSR, and I said, what does that mean? So look how far I've
What's a
come.
quizzer?
Yeah, I was like, QSR, what kind of acronym is that? Thankfully, I asked the question. Always ask the questions.
Amen.
And Google obviously is a wonderful resource. Yeah. And you're going to have your insurance, and you're going to have your auto, and you're going to have your finance. And we're absolutely going to have those things. But you're also seeing for a brand like ours, and hopefully more to follow, we have brands like Birdies, right, who are an incredible women's footwear brand that makes comfortable and stylish shoes. They're going to be on our jersey sleeve. We just announced a program with Curator, who's Rachel Zoe's subscription box, brand coming to us as well. And they're coming to us, and we're having these conversations, and we have many more ongoing now, because they truly believe in what we stand for, and they want people to know we stand for that too. And it's just such a different connection and a different reason to find ways to partner versus the traditional conversations, where, of course, again, you want to reach certain folks, or you might stand for what the league's doing. They're truly coming to Angel City, given that we're doing a lot of firsts in our lifetime, and they want to make sure that their consumers know that they are also aligned with how we're looking to change the world.
It really speaks to the power of story in this regard too, right? You've been able to craft a narrative around the club that speaks to, like we talked about earlier, what's really in the DNA in it, and it makes that outreach and sales so much more effective when you can lead with that story versus, hey, here's the number of tickets and signs and spots that you're going to get associated with it. We're gonna make you part of something much larger than just the sport itself.
Totally. And then you start to think through, how does this evolve for valuations, right? So, there's numerous avenues to take for evaluating what things should cost and why they should cost it. And a lot of times it's based off specific impressions and reach and visibility. Now we're at the point, and something we ask ourselves internally, and starting to think about how we do this. How do you measure empathy? Because that's something that's much different than just the number of people you're reaching with your brand. Are both important? Yes. But is it harder to achieve empathy? Absolutely. Right. So, as you're providing that, or you have the platform to do that, both in and outside of sport. But if that's something that, you have something that you can build partnerships around, it is much more powerful. And we're finding brands that are connecting on that piece. The regular evaluation checks out too, but they also recognize, that's a way very quickly to let people know, yes, we're aligned in this thinking, and here's a tangible way that we're going to do that together through that 10% piece.
Measurement is always going to be an issue in this industry, particularly,
Yes.
and you've added a layer onto it when we start talking about, I mean, it's hard enough with the intangibles that we deal with in sponsorship to begin with, but then you throw the layer of empathy on there. I think we're just going to have to start hooking people up to e-meters and things like that in order to see what's going on. But I appreciate that. It's like you're aligning with the story. You're aligning with the brand. It's so much more than just how many people clicked on a banner, right? It's how people are binding themselves to your brand for the long term.
Yep, absolutely. It's even if they just saw the announcement and thought it was cool, they're not a fan of the organization, but they walk by, a Birdie's store, the newly opened one down on Abbot Kinney. I'll drop them there,
Nice
but
job.
they walk by, they know like, oh, Birdie's is a great brand, and they know that because they're aligned with who they are as a person, right? So there's just a different meter to that versus other platforms that are available.
Well, I think it's also one of the interesting hallmarks of success here too, right? Because when a property moves beyond what would be typically considered the endemic sponsorships, right? The sneaker or the
Mm-hmm.
apparel provider or the game ball provider. I mean, you've got a few to tell there too, right? And you've got the Gatorade, Heineken, DoorDash you brought up, Birdies you brought up, Jane Walker is another one. I mean, I know you love all your partners equally.
Of course I do. They're all my favorites.
So,
I
but I'm
love
going
all
to
my
put you in
children.
that tough position. Who are you playing? Is there anything that's coming up that you see as a partnership that you're particularly excited about?
I mean, an easy one to talk about, and it is fresh, is our Johnny Walker, Jane Walker partnership.
Mm.
So that's a brand that I followed for a long time, and candidly, I've been a fan of because of their campaigns around women and firsts. They had run advertisements and taken out full pages of newspaper ads, with incredible women that I look up to, like Billie Jean King and Lily Singh, not to only name a couple of our owners, but their whole campaign was be the first, but don't be the last.
Mm.
And, I was recently listening to a podcast, which had Abby Wambach on there. It's called Presented By with Kristen Bell and Monica Padman. And Abby had shared there that for a long time, she only compared herself to other women and thought, well, I'm doing great because I might be making more than so and so. But she wasn't comparing herself to the right people. She wasn't comparing herself to the men and
To
to
true
folks
peers.
in other industries. Exactly, to her true peers. She's one of the most powerful and talented athletes in the world and will be for all of time. And she's had those realizations now and is certainly doing such incredible work, whether it's writing a book or doing personal coaching or sitting on, brands boards and making sure that she's asking for more there. But with Jane Walker, to me, they're a brand that I felt like, hey, how do we not work together?
Yeah,
Right? Like
right. It's
you're
too
doing this
easy.
incredible campaign. Here's how we're doing it. Here are the people that are involved with it. We have to do this. So what's fun is it's unique to us, not only because of how outward we are with what we're looking to accomplish on behalf of women and everyone else with that we are working towards providing level playing fields to, but it's also just so aligned in we're new. So the firsts in that campaign of everything that we get to do, our first game, our first
Mm.
sporting director in Eni Aluko, and certainly first coach and first player, and these big historic moments that, again, we want to do these firsts as a club. Our goal is that everybody would look to replicate purpose and making sure that they're making real impact. We by no means want to own the 10% model. And we have some things in ticketing we're thinking about too. The point of us doing those is to show that it's possible and to allow other people the avenue to do it or do something better.
Well, you just spoke of firsts, right? And so clearly there's a lot of firsts that are coming up, right? We launched the first brand associated with, and if anybody hasn't gone out, go to angelcityfc.com and be sure to look at the brand and be sure to read into all the details associated with the development of the brand because it's a pretty outstanding story to be able to tell just in its own right and some of the representations of it. But we've got that's launched now. The schedule, I don't know if the schedule's out yet, but you've got a ton of firsts coming up. Is there anything in particular that you're looking to that you're either excited about or what's keeping you up at night right now? Because launching a franchise is no small thing.
It's not. I think what keeps me up at night is just hoping that we're doing enough. Myself and everyone else in our team, we're really emotionally connected to what we're building. I remember sitting, with Julie Ehrman, who's one of our three founders and our president, um, you know, almost 2 years ago now in our backyard and just talking about what we truly thought this could be and having these same conversations before we made them a reality. And now sitting here today and watching the reality happen and seeing the market react to us in that way, it just feels like we have the world on our shoulders in a really powerful way, but also one that comes with a lot of responsibility.
Mm.
So it's everything from what is the ticketing experience like? Do we, are we doing enough for those fans? How are we making sure that we're, visible and empowering fans overseas? We have a lot of fans following us on social and buying our merchandise in other markets. How are we getting to them and hearing their stories around what it's like to be a woman in their cultures and their countries, and making sure that we're supporting them and using our platform for them. So we really view our platform as endless because we have so much work to do around the world. And it just truly never feels like we're doing enough. And we want to make sure that we are. So when I sit up at night, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm truly thinking about the young girl in Los Angeles playing soccer and hoping that she can eventually see a pathway into the NWSL, and that's where she wants to play. And it's a powerful league, and she can be proud of the salary that she makes and so forth. And I'm thinking about, the soccer dad that's so excited to bring his family, and what that experience looks like for him, and making sure that it's budget friendly to himself, and also something that, he has a really enjoyable time at. So it's the small things and the big things all at once.
Jessica Smith, I can't thank you enough for spending this time with us to talk about the launch of Angel City FC, the mission behind the organization, how that's informing what you're doing from a partnership perspective, and all the places that this is going to go here. Congratulations on where you are now, and good luck on making it to all the places you still have yet to go.
Really appreciate it, and appreciate your support and the chance to continue to speak about what we're building. It means a lot. So you've been in this industry for a long time, and knowing that, we're doing something that you have interest in to share with your listeners is really important to us.
Thanks for listening to this ADC Partners podcast. For more information about ADC Partners, please visit our website at adcpartners.com.